Easy, how are we?
Shawnee, I'm doing good.
Good. I'm delighted you're doing good. That sounded very... I believe you're doing good.
Yeah, I was out there setting personal worsts there this morning.
I don't believe you're doing good. Personal worst. That bar is set awfully low, Eric. How low are we talking about?
I went for a long run today and it lasted 10 minutes. No, but I'm proud of it. You know, the 10 minutes is better than no minutes. Now, I'm going to go back out again later. I'm going to readjust. There's two things. One, Mozambique has struck again. They light fires here with everything. Maybe the government here is going to come find me for telling the truth, but they burn everything. Like we spend ages like sorting things in work. You know, the plastic goes here and this goes here. The bin comes, they throw it all in the same one. They drive it down the road and they light it all on fire. But
oh wow!
They seem to light a fire at about 4 or 5 in the morning. So when I start running, I get up at 5 to get ahead, just at sunrise, and the temperature is amazing. Like for once, temperature is not the thing, but I'm going around and it's like thick smoke and you're running in it and you're breathing it in and it's like do you ever see or smell plastic burning? It's a thicker kind of I suppose feeling when you see it. You can actually see it, you can taste it almost when you're breathing it in after 10 minutes. So usually it's only sections, so I'll run around certain sections and whatever way the wind is blowing, but there was no real wind today and it was just everywhere and I was like I'm gonna die. So I'm gonna go later when the burning has stopped and then hopefully do it. But yeah, the other thing that annoyed me about it was after that, because part of this run we I'm doing a Garmin coach plan.
Right.
So you set out your goals, you set out your thing, and then you're supposed to say, right, how many average kilometers do you do in a week and at what average pace would you do that? And I was like, that's a bit of a bizarre question because average pace over 30, 40 kilometers means you were doing the same kind of run over those 30, you know, like if you were doing intervals, your average pace at the end of the interval could be a 7-minute kilometer if you took 2-minute breaks at a stop, you know, like I was like, that's an unusual way of, but I get it. It's one shoe fits all type thing. I was like, fair. But like it decided because I did, you have to do these threshold runs. They're 9 minutes, 2-minute warm up, 5-minute best effort, 2-minute. Now, I'm good at best efforts. Like if I know 5 minutes, if I know 4 minutes, if I know 10 minutes best effort, I can do it really, really well. So I'll do it. Now I say really well. I can put in a good effort. You know, I'll do a 4:20. I'll do a 4:30, and be like, right, that's enough for today. Now some people are listening to that going, that's not a good effort. I was like, yeah, fair, but that's where I wanted to be. I didn't want to be like sprint because that's not realistic. It was what could I hold for the 4 minutes and be tired at the end
at that pace.
Go another minute, 2 minutes, 3 minutes, and then be like, right, now I'm goosed. Because I thought, look, that's going to be a fair assessment. Then the reason I did the Garmin coaching was I wanted it's supposed to move with you based on the feedback you give it saying that was hard, that was easy, that was this based on your goal pace. So I set my goal pace and then after the first run, I was like, right, your easy run's at a 5:20. I was like, I just did my best effort at a 4:30. I was like, there's no way my easy run is 50 seconds slower at the start of a plan. Do you know what I mean? I get it if we progress to that. That's perfect. That's what I wanted. So I was sticking to the paces, as I said on a couple of episodes ago. And now I became that person on without noticing because Garmin was going, oh, easy run, heart rate, 180. I was like, there's nothing easy about that. But it asks you then, like, how was your run? And I'd be like, hard. Like, as in, like, trying to tell the system.
And whether you felt good or strong or weak at the end of it, does it come up with that as well? Yeah.
Yeah. It was like, how did that feel? And I was like, hard. And I was like, and not only that, we spoke about when I laughed and made a joke about the optional. The reason I wasn't doing the optional runs because the first portion was way above the intensity that for an easy run. So I was like, I'm just burning myself. With the experience I had, and then I had this, like, I know it's named after a coach, but it's just a computer that has built this. I lost trust in the coach. I was like, you're not listening to what I'm saying. I'm telling you, the run was hard. So I got annoyed then today after my 10-minute personal worst in the smoke, and I deleted the plan. I was like, right, we need a new plan. But that begs the question. These apps,
Yeah.
controversial or not, you know, and talking about coaches, they're a good guide, but my own, I fear. Now, I remember when I bought my Garmin, I took on my own and I went with, if you recall, I went heart rate training. It was a
Oh, yeah.
very, very, very frustrating few weeks, but it was very good at gauging intensity. And I didn't get injured. I stayed and I got really fit. I actually did really well off it. But then we developed experience through all of our guests and all of our races and all of those things. And now I've taken on this approach and I've set a goal because I've ran that pace before and I want to get there, but I want to start somewhere else because I know myself I can work a little bit harder on the sprints than the app is telling me to do. But right now we need to be a little bit slower on the easies. And that's acceptable. For a new person downloading these apps who might be able to give a good go at the 5 minutes like I did, and they have ambitious goals because they don't know what is a 5 minute pace for a half
Should
hour.
a new person even be doing the 5 minutes though? Because if you went out and did a 5 minute best effort, you don't know what it is. You don't know how you're holding on for it. And then you're goose at the end of 5 minutes and you're like, feck this.
Yeah, that's the bit that concerns me. Like I had I have the knowledge to know this is everything every coach we've had on is saying we shouldn't be doing. You shouldn't be doing a tempo run 6 days a week. You know, you shouldn't be doing every book we've read, every guest we've had, every research we've done. All the mistakes we've made was like, stop doing 6 tempo runs a week. I've been doing 6 tempo runs a week. Hoping for the last 2.5 weeks. And I'm like, I just wanted to run at the pace because I'm sick of running slow, but I know it's a process. You do get faster over time. And then after I did the 10 minutes, I was annoyed anyway that I was like, right, I have to do my long run this evening when all the smoke clears. And then I was like, I looked at it. So I was already angry. And then I looked at it, was like, easy pace, 5:25 to 5. I was like, fuck off. So because it's hotter in the afternoon, I was like, I'm not going to be able to do it. So it'll be another hard run. I'm like, no, I've had enough of this. So I'm going to come back with others. But it is, I suppose, people picking up this podcast may not have been with us for a long time. They may be just new to it. Running apps, metrics, they're fantastic if you know what you're doing. And on the other hand, can be dangerous if you don't know what you're doing. And that's one thing. That's a genuine review from someone who knows what he's doing. And I let it go on a week, probably longer than I should have, because I was like, when is this going to change? And I was researching. I was like, yeah, these apps are supposed to adjust based on your effort and all this. So I was like, I don't know. He wants me to do an hour at a 5 minute pace. And I had adjusted my goal pace to be an hour 45 half, which is a 5:4:59. So how can my easy pace in week 3 be 20 seconds slower than my goal pace? You know, I don't know. I really don't know. But they're a great guide. But maybe effort-based is probably a better route than pace-based with these. So I'm going to try the opposite now. I'm switching gears. So I'm going to go on an effort-based plan again, see if that progresses with me, because it's demotivating.
Yeah.
It really is. When you're being pushed too much, it's so demotivating. It's great to be pushed, but when you're actually looking forward to an easy run, and I say that, I don't look forward to running. I really look forward to an easy run. It's therapeutic. When you see an interval session, you're like, oh, feel fantastic after them. Don't get me wrong.
But you have to get yourself revved up for it. Like it's,
mentally. But when I see 45 minutes, easy run, keep your tempo around or your heart rate around here, or keep your perceived effort around here, I'm like, yes, music on. Let's go solve all the problems I had. But I found it's actually worked in the opposite. I actually feel really demotivated because I see easy run and go, because you have to go. I hate turning down the optional run. If we have a choice, me and you, and it's like, if we go left, it's 2K. If we go right, it's 3.5K. Me and you were always going to go right. We're always going to do it. But it kind of hurt me to be not able to do the optional part. And I felt like a failure every time because the watch is giving me an option. And I'm gassing and my heart rate's at 180. And it's like, optional easy run, another 20 minutes. I was like, Eric, come on now.
You're not getting those easy wins in the program that could build confidence, that a good running coach would give you those little easy runs. Say, hey, look at this compared to last week. When you're doing these, though, and you're saying the 6 tempos, how is the body? Because, like, one of the reasons I like now they say, even in this podcast, I think it comes up later on this episode, the 2 quality sessions, your long run, and then try and build your easy mileage and stuff around that. And the one of the reasons I found worked for me, because when I did it the other way, I was constantly getting injured before doing this podcast, and I was constantly trying to get the 10k PBs, the 5k PBs, stuff like that. And it was just, for me and my body, it was just too much volume. So when you were doing that, how was it for you? Sore legs after a long run? Aching muscles holding you back?
Meet your new training partner, Ultra Pure Essential Oil Muscle Rub Roll-On. Fast, effective recovery wherever you are.
Infused with 9 powerful essential oils and arnica, this vegan no-mess roll-on is perfect post-race, post-workout, or just winding down.
Roll this onto tired legs, arms, or back and massage in. Simple, soothing, and effective. Your muscles will thank you.
Made in County Mayo by an award-winning Irish family business, Ultra Pure means quality you can feel and trust.
Find Ultra Pure Essential Oil Muscle Rub Roll-On in pharmacies and health stores nationwide, or shop online on the new Ultra Pure store, ultrapurelabs.ie. By listening to this advert, you are supporting Irish businesses and this podcast. But for now, let's get back to the episode. Demotivating. Yeah, I was fatigued, but I've been fatigued before. Don't get me wrong, because I kept dodging the optional stuff. Nothing was longer than 30 minutes, 40 minutes, 45 minutes, I think was the most I've done. There was nothing scary about the volume I was doing, but I was just demotivated. I was just like, I'm sick of this plan already, and it's only 2 weeks in, because it was pushing. So on the interval days, it was too slow. It wasn't pushing me enough on my quick stuff. It was giving me okay. Yeah. So I was doing like 30-second intervals, and it was like, do this at a 4:30. I was like, a 4:30 for 30 seconds. I was like, I'm 3:10, 3:20 for that. You know? And then it's like, now go back, do an easy jog in between at a 5:30. I'm like, hold on a minute. I was like, and it's called like speed intervals, and it's saying like 9 out of 10 effort. I was like, right, this is way off. And that's why I think pace is great. I think effort is probably where I need to be for the time being. And that's when it becomes demotivating, because your watch just keeps, it's like you're a Tamagotchi that's about to die. It just keeps beeping at you. Not in the pace, not in the desired zone. You're useless. Eric, you're fat. And I was like, whoa, who put that setting on? It's just in that element, it's a little bit demotivating. And that's why I was like, I'm sick of this thing. And Borderline was just like, I'm just going to leave me watch here and just go for a run. But no, we'll change up the plan and look for, I don't know if the Garmin coach plans are for me. I might just look for one of the half marathon plans that you can get online, because the Garmin online plans are quite good.
What's the difference?
Download them. You know what you're getting, and it's either heart rate based or perceived effort.
Right.
So you are the master of it all. And when you're feeling shit, it's like your perceived effort needs to be this. And if you're feeling like it's hard, then it's like, oh, well, do you know what? You're not feeling it. It gives you more authority to be like, do you know what? This pace is better for me, and this is what I should be doing. And then on days where you're feeling better, perceived effort should be a 10, and I can go to the 3-minute kilometer for the 15-second sprint interval or whatever it is I'm trying to do. So that's going to be but yeah, it raises the question. I think a few people were talking about it online. I'm seeing a lot of Runner app and a few other apps, and Garmin Coach and Strava and this, that, and the other, and everyone's pushing this AI plan, when basically you put in a few numbers and there you go. There's your plan. And that's it. And look, it's fantastic to get you started. It is fantastic. But I fear for people, because a lot of people say they hate running. And if they have ambition without, and they want to do it, I think these apps could actually hinder. Because, or maybe I'm hindered because I know more and I'm like, nah, this is horseshit. So it's...
But we both remember starting running, and it was like, right, 2, 3K, whatever it was. And I was like, okay, what you doing? I did it in 14 minutes. Might try 13:30 tomorrow, And then you got to the end of your 2, 3K and you're huffing and puffing and you're out of breath. And then you built to 5 and it was the same thing. And then 10K is like, I'm after doing 2 10Ks. My second one's a little bit stalled me first. And I remember talking to people like, this is going back 7, 8 years, and it's like, Jesus, I hate 10Ks. That last 10K is horrible. Now we know it's like, okay, that should be an easy pace. You should finish those 10Ks feeling like I could have went for another couple of K, but let's save yourself for that harder session. But I mean, going back to your 30 seconds for your 4:30 pace, when me and you did Dunshaughlin a couple of months ago, you did a 4:30 pace for the first kilometre. If you can rattle that off for a kilometre, that should not be your interval pace during the first 10K. Like, no one does their interval pace for over a kilometre for their first kilometre in a 10K race. It's just something you don't do, otherwise you're not finishing that 10K.
Yeah, and look, people listen probably say, well, your easy pace should be around the 5:45, but when you add in temperatures and thick plastic smoke and rubber and everything else, it's like we kind of have to factor in a few other elements as well. The temperatures get up to about 26 at the minute. It's not majorly hot, but it's still a factor. So you have to be able to have some authority on it and without feeling like a failure. I think that's the bit that's getting me, is the element where I'm like, now I know you can edit them, but I don't really want to be editing every day. If that's the case, I'll just make my own plan, and
you just feel mentally broken each time.
Yeah, essentially, yeah. So it's just a little bit off. It's just a little bit off. And but yeah, we'll see. And that's where the benefit, like if people say, oh, I'm not good enough to get a coach, to be honest, when you don't know anything, getting a coach to set you off is probably the right thing. And then if you're a casual athlete, then maybe you're like, well, I know enough now to just tip away myself, so but I don't know if the app is that answer.
Do you feel that same accountability when the app pops up to go, today you have to run this? If you don't do it, do you still get that accountability?
Yeah, still, because it ticks off the runs in the week. So I get the accountability element.
Right.
Now, don't get me wrong, there's no one going to ring me and go,
no, but like, does it make like...
I like ticking things off the calendar. And when I see you have a run today, I like to go and get it done. But then when I'm out there getting it done and it's asking me to do something I'm not capable of doing, it's more frustrating because I feel like I've wasted a run. I feel like I wasted the motivation to get out and benefit myself. And then Garmin keeps gaslighting me saying, oh, performance increase +6. I'm like, no, it's not. Stop pretending your plan is good. I hate it. So, it was an interesting insight because I haven't used one in a long time. I've done a few of Emmett Dunleavy's plans where I just saw the calendar plan and then I'd be messaging them and what do you think it is? Am I doing these too quick? Should I be jogging or walking in between? And I was getting advice being like, listen, slow down the interval because I want you to jog in between. I'm like, okay, now I see where we're going.
Yeah.
And it was, again, effort-based, so... And that's where having a coach in that out. No, I'm not pushing coaches on people, but I'm just saying people are using these apps. Therefore, topic of conversation, I went back to the apps and I'm not happy. But yeah, it was a curious one. And I don't think anyone has the one size fits all figured out just yet.
Are you waiting then until obviously you're over in Mozambique, you have bonfires every night and all the rest, so is the case of just something to keep you going, and then once you have that goal and more of a set routine then for your race, or you have that race scheduled, is that what you say to people, race schedule before you start getting running coaches in, or just try and get going, or what's your thoughts on that?
If you're just getting going, personally, I'm really missing, when we talk about accountability, showing up to a club or a group or something like that. Even a running partner. It doesn't have to be a club, but just someone that I can hold on to for training. And they're like, listen, I'm going to tip on here at this pace, but we'll see you at the finish line. That kind of thing. And you can get feedback from them and learn a thing or two. Sometimes finding your local run club just to go down for a run or two. Your local park run, you'll meet people there. Your athletics clubs, you'll meet people there. So yeah, it's for me, the goal is Barcelona. That is the goal. So the goal is already started. For me, it's about building a base for a good, strong base because I want to give a good showing in Barcelona next year. So that's what's frustrating about this plan is I feel like I haven't wasted. I've been moving, but I feel like I've wasted 3 weeks. You know, I'm like, oh, fuck's sake. So, but I've been running, I've been moving and doing whatever. So we'll change the plan and keep going and just keep showing up every day.
Yeah, I've been blessed with the long runs now, meeting people, going for the run and all the rest. And I just feel like there's sometimes I'm on that run with them and I'm like, I know if I was by myself, the pace would drop by another 30, 40 seconds. And I'm going at 5:45, 6 minute pace. Like, and it's like, I know the pace would just drop and I'd be like, oh, feck this, just cut back here. You've done enough for the week, but trying to slowly build and all the rest, it's going good. But it could go south this week, Eric, because I'm after signing up for one of those Spartan races. So on the start of next week's podcast, we'll see how that one goes. If it all goes literally tits up, I'm looking at it as all monkey bars and A-frames and climbing and falling into like fecking water and stuff like that. I don't know how I'm going to swim out of it because I can't swim, but we'll see how that goes. At the moment, the training is going well. It's on track 5 weeks in, but this could be the making or breaking me next week.
As long as it's not like that hell and back where they electrocute you and all. I wasn't a fan of that kind of stuff.
No, there's no that. There's all challenges and stuff, I suppose. Like there's monkey bars that swing while you're on them and that kind of thing. And like there is crawling under barbed wire and that kind of stuff. But each obstacle is more of a challenge than, hey, you're gonna run and get shot by someone with pellets in a ditch. That stuff. Done, we're held back 2 or 3 times. Then getting shot the third time. Like, what am I doing? Like, if you do held back, fair play to you, enjoy it and all the rest. But it's not for me. It's a bit of crack. With a good group, it's a bit of crack. But when you get electrocuted 4 or 5 times and then you get stuck behind someone who gets frozen and you're crawling through and you're getting electrocuted just for the sake of getting electrocuted, it's like, there's no fun in this. Now, I could be ripping on Spartan next week and absolutely hating it and fine. It's not for me. But it's something different that's keeping the gym work going. And I'm happy enough with that. But that's with me doing Spartan and all the rest. That's coming up next week. We got to talk about this week's guest on the Any Given Runday podcast, Eric.
Yeah, this week's guest is another great one. It's another good episode. It's always good, as we say, to have front row seats to people with phenomenal stories. Ordinary people doing extraordinary things is what we like to say. And this one is no different. We've talked a hell of a lot in this intro, so it's probably best just to let this podcast kick off, let you enjoy. We hope all of your training is going well, and we hope you enjoy yet another great episode on the Any Given Runday podcast.
Let's go. Our next guest on the Any Given Runday podcast has, in the space of a few years, gone from struggling with drug addiction to having us rethink our own running journeys if he considered himself a quote-unquote bang average runner up until very recently, especially with accolades of a 16:02 5k, a 75-minute half at the Dublin City half earlier this year, and hitting a marathon PB a few weeks earlier than that in Barcelona of 2 hours 39 minutes. Will Boyle, welcome to this week's episode of the Any Given Runday podcast. How are you getting on?
Good, lads. Thanks for having me on. Excited to be here.
Will, you did the Barcelona Marathon.
I did. I believe you were over in good numbers yourselves.
Yeah, you didn't come say hello. What's wrong with you? Now you're jumping on the podcast. If I had known this,
I know.
If I had known this.
No, Barcelona was a good time. It was a good run.
Will, phenomenal accolades, and what Sean has touched on there is it's everything bar average. How did you get into running? Was running always a part of your life? Was sport always a part of your younger years? And what was your journey into where you are now, and what brought you here?
It kind of was and it wasn't. You know, I tipped in and out of bits and drabs of running and skill. I had very bad asthma as a kid, and it just kept coming back. So I remember, I kind of dipped my toe into rugby, never had any ball skill. I knew I was quick, you know, but my chest would tighten up. I used to hit the 800 meters in sports day every year, and I come through 400 strong, and then I just start seeing black, and I passed out a couple of times, and that was the end of my 800 career. I wasn't allowed to run anymore. Tried my hand at cycling, tried my hand at rowing, just kept dipping in and out of different sports, and always just struggled with my chest, and then I threw the towel in for a couple of years. But I think the big thing for me was I was never good at team sports, you know. Maybe not team sports, but your kind of traditional ball sports, rugby, football. I wasn't that kid. You know, I liked cycling, I liked endurance, I liked running, rowing, all that kind of stuff. And then I didn't, you know. I didn't do sports for years and went off the beaten track. I guess this time around when I got into running, like Sean mentioned there, I'm sure we'll speak about it, I went through a rough couple of years, and my dad's always been a runner. For as long as I can remember, he's ran 12, 13k every day. And his big thing was he always wanted to break 40 minutes. in the 10K, and he'd chase it and chase it and chase, and he always kept coming close, and he's getting further away. And then he finally broke 40 minutes in his 50s. And I don't know if I was jealous or I was kind of looking at him going, I'm not doing anything with myself, but eventually I think when I swung back into the running, I found quite quickly, one, I was in a bad place, and when I went out the door, I had that room to breathe, I had that room to think, and I needed it. I was running away from something at the beginning, and then I realised my chest wasn't tightening up anymore, and I just kept going.
Was that the first I was about to go back and say, obviously the asthma through sport, was that part of the looking back now? It's hard to know at the time why you do things, but looking back now, having had so many false starts, shall we say, or false starts, you try something, you like it, and then all of a sudden, I'm goosed, I can't do it, I've inhalers of this, of never, whatever it is you're doing. Was that kind of the bit that just, it was one day, it was just a straw that broke the camel's back, and that was it with sport? You were like, I'm sick of this.
I kind of remember leaning on it a bit more. Like, it was a good excuse, it looked on paper, okay, I have asthma, I can't breathe, I can't do that, you know what I mean? And there was an element of that. We used to train before school, and I'd croak it before school. I'd have to ring home and go home. I wouldn't go into school, but on paper, to me, it looked like a very good excuse not to do that, not to go to PE, not to go to training after school, this kind of thing. And I was chronically inconsistent, and not because I'd just give up. I'd kind of pivot to something else very, very quickly. And that's kind of my early years, and a lot of my life looking back. I was chasing something, some kind of feeling of excitement, some kind of feeling of elation, whatever it was. I'd chase it, and then, running might give it to me for a while, and then it wouldn't, and I'd find it somewhere else, and I'd burn these things out over and over again, looking for that feeling of excitement, enjoyment, that kind of release from the rest of life. And as soon as it wasn't in the place I was chasing it, I'd go and find it somewhere else. So I think I lent on the asthma thing because it was a good excuse, and at times it was a big reality. I just couldn't breathe. I didn't like that. But at other times it was the perfect kind of scapegoat for me to lean on,
Did you know with your dad when he hit that sub 40, did you know what a sub 40 meant, like in terms of, like, before I got into running or marathon or anything like that? If I had a sub 40 10K, I'm not too sure I'd know what goes into getting a sub 40, but being around your dad and stuff, did you know what that was, the running? Like, what was your kind of running before you kind of went in and out of it?
I kind of knew. I knew the paces. I knew what they felt like. I knew how difficult it would be to sustain that for 10K kind of thing. But I guess at that point, like at this time, I'm out of school a couple of years. I haven't ran in probably 6 years. I probably forgot how difficult it was to kind of operate around that mark. And I was kind of looking at him, and I was like, yeah, he's a good bit down the line. How am I going to catch him down here? And I set out. I didn't initially just start running off the back of that. I got into other kind of fitnesses. I went into the gym, and then one day I looked at myself in the mirror, and I was really overweight. I'd kind of been eating a lot after I got sober. I was pushing 90 kilos, and I was never kind of that size. And I just looked at myself, and I wasn't happy, and I went out for a run, and I couldn't run for a continuous kilometre. Never mind the 355s he was running per kilometre. Like, I was running 6 minute Ks and not being able to hold them continuously. And I remember walking back up to the house at the time, and I was ashamed of myself. I was like, how can you not do that?
Yeah.
Have you got to this point in your life that you can't run a continuous kilometre in 6 minutes? And I just tipped out the door every day and started kind of stacking a little bit here, a little bit there, until I could run 10 continuous kilometres. And then I realised how far away 40 minutes was. I was like, oh, we've got a bit of work to do here.
And still is. Can I talk about, or maybe I want to kind of touch on, because we kind of have to go back before we can get into where you are now, because in the lead up to that one continuous kilometre and that realisation, there was those couple of years of, I suppose, getting into certain things, probably chasing that high that you weren't getting from sports, or moving on to the next thing. What was it that brought you down that road? Where did it all go right or wrong?
I think, like, when I look back now, and hindsight is clear sight, you kind of understand these things when you come through them, when you've looked at them a little bit. But at the time, you don't. And for me, like, looking back now, I can see from when I was a kid, it's like, wow, you just threw yourself into these things again, chasing that feeling. The pattern is there. It all makes sense to me. But I guess at that time, you don't see that. For me, when I kind of stopped doing sports, I guess around 4th, 5th year, maybe I was still tipping in and out of it here and there. But in around that time in school, I was involved in DJing and the music scene and this kind of thing. And I had all these ideas that I was going to be a DJ and that was going to be my life. I was going to do music in college. But because of that, I was in the club environment a lot. And it's very, very easy to hide some kind of drug dependency or alcohol misuse or anything like that in a club environment because everyone's drinking and everyone's drugging, you know? And it was this perfect place to hide. And then lo and behold, they closed down all the clubs. COVID hits the country. And you're sitting at home doing the same things you were doing in a club. And you realise, oh, well, hang on a second. I'm not just partying the way these people are. I'm reliant on this and I can't stop. And that kind of hit me very, very quickly during those COVID years when I realised, okay, maybe I'm not just a DJ who parties a little bit too much. Maybe I'm in a bit of trouble here. And all of a sudden, you're very much alone, you know? Like there's this kind of sense at festivals or in clubs or wherever it is that, you know, we're all in this together. This is a thing of enjoyment. It all makes sense. Again, kind of like the asthma, it's that perfect excuse. Of course, I can abuse drugs and drink too much. I'm a DJ. It's part of the lifestyle. But I don't think it's part of anyone's lifestyle when you're sitting at home alone during COVID doing the very same things and you can't stop anymore, you know?
Need fuel that keeps up with your pace? Meet Perform's Carb Gel with 30 grams of fast-acting carbs, powered by 3 fuel sources for sustained energy when it matters the most. Packed with cluster dextrin for smooth digestion and a steady release. No spikes, no crashes.
All that in a compact 40 milliliter sachet, tested under Informed Sport, so you know it's clean and competition ready. Whether you're chasing the podium or just in an XPR, Perform Carb Gel gets you there faster, longer, stronger. If you're looking to stock up, you can use the code AGR to get 20% off your order.
By listening to this advert, you are supporting Irish businesses and this Irish podcast. Time to get back to the episode. How did you manage? Like, it's one element I have to say, until this very moment, I never considered. I considered we can't do an event together. I considered we can't do this together. We can't go to a wedding together. We can't do that. I never factored in, and I say this in a nice way, the element of society, like you said, the club inside, even the drinking side for some extent, or the want to go to socialise in a pub. I know that was, we kind of all did it. We were all eating chicken nuggets to avoid COVID and all that. You know, it was so we got a glimpse of what we could do in order to go have a couple of beers together. How was it dealing with that? Because this is the first time I've ever heard of this issue coming up, that now I'm at home and now it's just me and this. How was that?
I think for a while it was kind of this battle to normalise it in my head. You know, it was like, okay, you know, we're all right here. Things are going to open back up. We're going to go to college. We're going to get back to normal. It's going to be fine. And slowly the weeks go on and on and on, and the head's getting worse. You're getting more isolated. And for me, probably the biggest thing was it was one big secret, you know. I think people knew I was kind of off the rails a little bit. Like before that, I was kind of DJing and going into school the next day to sit a mock exam for my leaving cert and sleeping through it.
Like, rails. Now your man's
exactly.
a bit off the rails, likes a party. You know?
They knew I was kind of down the beaten track a little bit, but I don't think anyone knew the extent of what was going on up here and what I was hiding in the wardrobe, you know. And it gets more and more difficult to hide that when you're living under the one roof with your family, you know, for all this amount of time that was going to be 2 weeks at the start. And then it's, you know, we're pushing it down the road again and again, until you're left with this big glaringly obvious problem. And for me, I think the biggest thing was trying to live this double life where I just existed in my bedroom, trying to hide this massively overwhelming secret that everyone could kind of see but didn't know the details of. And eventually that all just comes crashing down on top of it and you're like, I can't do this anymore. You know, who am I? Where am I going? How do we get out of this? I don't know. And that was a dark time, you know.
What was the first step in that when it all came crashing down? What was the first step with your family or with everything else? Because these things are, as we've talked about and we've touched on it in a couple of episodes, these are the hard things to say and to deal with, I suppose, and face head on.
I think the first step was this conversation where I just admitted it. I said, you know, I'm addicted to drugs. I don't know what to do. I don't know where to go. I don't know how to get help. I know I need help. I don't know what that looks like. And that, you know, it kind of sounds on paper, okay, yeah, that's a good place to start. But looking your dad in the eye and telling him you're a drug addict is it's a tough day at the office. Like, no one wants to hear that.
For you, you're like, oh.
It's a heavy pin to drop, you know. So it came with its own complications. But I think initially when you have that conversation, there's like this element of pride, you know, from your loved ones, from your friends, from your family. They're like, right, he really wants to do something about this. You know, he wants to turn his life around. He wants to do good things. We're all behind him. You know, we'll rally the support and we'll get this, you know, we'll turn this sinking ship around.
Was it a shock to your dad when you told him?
Yeah, it was and it wasn't. You know, I think it was glaringly obvious to everyone at this point that there was some big struggle going on. My probably failed attempts to kind of hide it behind this mask of, oh, you know, my mental health is really bad, COVID's difficult, this kind of thing. You're going to play every card in the book at that stage. Like, but I think it was a hard thing for any man to accept. And I guess the hard thing for my dad's he's never drank, he's never smoked, he's never done drugs in his life. So all of a sudden, you know, his son is struggling with all of these things. And he's like, what happened here? Like, where do we go? It's a massive thing to wrap your head around, you know? I guess from my part, there's also at this point anyway, there's an awful amount of shame, like a massive, massive amount of shame. And I guess some of that comes from, you know, my own judgments that I would have cast on society. It's like the drug addict is down here and everyone else is up here. So all of a sudden I'm looking up at you guys, you know, which I don't understand to be the case now. But back then I was very much, I was on the ground, you know, and I found that hard. But I'll never forget that conversation. And like I was saying there's that element of pride and everyone wants to come behind you and support you and they're proud of it, which is a strange thing to say. But I can tell you by the 6th or 7th time you've had that conversation, there's no pride or happiness or support anymore. You know, it's like, we've been here, we've done this. What are you going to do differently this time? You know, you're going to promise us the world again and do nothing about it. And that's the way things went eventually.
At that point then, is that when... What was the big eureka moment in this? When, because obviously, look, we've all seen documentaries, we've all watched different things, and everyone, you know, I promise things will be different, and it's like, oh yeah, here we go again, and that's what you're alluding to there. What was the kick in the teeth for you? What was the big awakening?
I guess for me, having rehabilitation is a massive part of my journey, and eventually how I ended up getting sober. But I had been in 5 rehabs at this point with no avail. You know, a couple of months sober, half a year sober, this kind of thing, and straight back. And the funny thing about the addicted mind is, like, when you make these promises, when you promise someone the world, a lot of the time you truly mean what you're saying. You know, like, you really do want to turn it around, you believe you can, but there's this kind of devil on your shoulder that's quite powerful that just ends up kicking you back the other way and you go with it, you know. But for me, by the 6th time I was in treatment, and I used to go in with this big judgmental head. You know, I'd go in and I'd scan the room of everyone else who was there. And I kind of say, oh, he's worse than me. She's worse than me. And as long as everyone was worse than me, I felt I was all right. You know, I was kind of looking around. I was like, you're all worse than me. I haven't hit the bottom of the barrel. So we're going to be all right here. Because if you're further down the scale than I am and you're turning around, then I have the same opportunity. You know, I had this very skewed outlook on things. But I remember the last treatment centre I was in, they do a family day, where essentially all your family come down, everyone's family into the one room, and you talk through these things, kind of group therapy style thing. And my family had obviously been involved in that in the other rehabilitation centres that I was in. And then, you know, this time I remember we got down to the family day, and my family, my core people weren't there. And I was looking around the room, and all these people who I thought were worse than me, or, you know, at the bottom of the barrel, all of their families were there. And it hit me like a ton of bricks. It just dropped down on me at once. I was like, you're 21, 20, whatever it was at the time, and you're at real risk here of the people who you love most in the world, your closest core people, are just done with you because you've put them through this too many times. It's not that they don't love you or they're not going to show up for you. They just can't watch you do this anymore, you know? And that hit me like a ton of bricks. I remember going up to the bedroom that evening and just staring at the wall. And it wasn't like, you know, it hits you and then you figure it all out, you know, and day by day everything gets really, really good, and then we end up in this great place. It's a confusing journey, you know, but I just remember that moment, and I'll always remember that pivotal moment of, I'm going to lose everything I've ever loved if I don't figure this out. And I may have thought this about myself. I may have wanted to do this with my life, but I can't do any of that unless I figure this one thing out. And I've been messing about for a couple of years there. Let's get this show on the road. Took a long time after that, but that was when I look back, the key moment of, you got to figure this out, man, you know?
Did this then lead straight into the running journey? Because one of your recent your diary episodes you put in, you've quote unquote, the marathon saved my life. And I know from personal training and, in the gym and stuff and training people, it's one of those that when you train people, you say it's very good for your mental health and stuff. And then some people that have been through it go, you know what? No, because there's underlying issues and stuff. I'm like, no, but it can help you release we know it, like the base of it releases certain endorphins and all the rest. For you then, did the running become, I don't want to say a crutch, but just something that got you through from there, or what happens then? What's your thoughts when you hear kind of like just exercise for mental health and everything else goes through from there?
A couple of things. When I started running, there is absolutely no doubt it was a crutch. Again, I needed something. I needed this piece to escape. It was probably, again, just that addicted mind leaning into something, anything to just get away. And at this point, I'd gone to, they call it a secondary rehabilitation centre. I was kind of there for 6 months to reintegrate myself back into life, because the key thing for me is I went to these little treatment centres where I you'd get clean, but then you go back to life. And I kind of learned after a while, I knew how to get sober, but I had no idea how to stay sober. So to go to this place for 6 months, and I found that incredible, probably the best thing I've ever done in my life, but also potentially the hardest thing I've ever done in my whole life. And, when you're living in a house with 10 lads who are going through the same battle you're going through, it's difficult. And getting out in the evening, every evening for a run, was just this split moment in time of your time. Everything's going to be okay here, buddy. Just get out and put one foot in front of the other. There was no talk of marathons or going a bit quicker or anything like this. It was just an escape. So at the beginning, absolutely, I was running away. And then as I, progressed a little bit more into myself, I started to find out who I was, what I wanted to do in life. And I didn't need to lean on these voices as much anymore. I found myself running towards something instead of running away from something, if that makes sense, And I always kind of say now, like, I have a couple of opinions on it. One of them is I will always have this element of an addictive personality in my belief. Some people will disagree with that and tell you, you need to cure all your voices. And that's okay. That's an opinion too. For me, I will always have this thing inside me that needs to channel my energy somewhere. And it's my duty as someone who knows that to make sure I channel it somewhere healthy, somewhere positive. Running can be that and it can't be that, And I always kind of go by, it's okay to run 100 kilometers a week and 120, whatever it is, and say you're not addicted, as long as that's not the only thing you do in that week, So I kind of find myself falling into these mindsets. If my whole week revolves around that 100, 120 kilometers, then I'm falling into this thing of chasing running. Whereas if that 120 kilometers is a part of a bigger week of other things, of other places, of other people, I'm in a better mindset, But for me, movement, I say the marathon saved my life, and I'm going to reword that a little bit and say getting sober absolutely saved my life, but the marathon and running gave me a life that I never had,
Right.
And I need that. I need that outlet. I've never been someone who sits still very well. I often find myself in a place in life where I'm struggling with something. I've had a hard day. I come home, I lace up my runners, and it's like this process of meditation. I go out, I think about it, I come home with a clearer mind, I have some food, and I feel a bit better, and I don't think you can put a price on that. So I guess there's two sides of the coin, it can be that defective thing, but it can also be one of the most positive powers there is. Like,
there's half of our listeners now all side-eyeing each other when you said, if running is the only thing you think about all week, they're all like, what did he just say? Because running, although it is, and we can talk about it, does become your personality. But as you have correctly said, as long as it is having a positive impact, that you're not saying, ma'am, can't see you because I have to run, or I'm going running and I don't care that the dog needs to be walked or this needs to be done. It's when you start to break down relationships around you because of what it is you're doing. And that's the fundamental element we're doing. Because let's be honest, you can cover 120k quicker than I can cover 40k. So we're probably doing the same time away. And and that's probably what people are listening to going, am I addicted to running? Yes, we all are addicted to running. If you're listening to this podcast, you're addicted to running. Who's listening to running podcasts when they're running? But it's, when you look at that now, obviously we've come through secondary rehab. We're now taking on our first runs. And I just want to touch on that because we touched on it at the start and I want to come back to it. At what point now did your dad have an input into this element of your life when running became an element? Did you start to form a new relationship with your dad? Because obviously we broke down that relationship quite deeply.
For sure.
And now all of a sudden we're in secondary rehab. We're turning a page, but the page is blank. And now you're saying, I'm going to try run. Did we form a new relationship, or what was this starting like?
I guess, like, looking back through my whole life, me and my dad have always been best friends. You know, like, we've always been really close. And that was obviously the big chasm in between our relationship was addiction, and what that does to the family and what it did to our relationship. Likewise, what it did to other relationships in my life too. At this point, there's obviously like a massive amount of skepticism. Do you know, is he going to stay sober? Is it going to be the same again? And of course there is, you know, like you got to be deluded to just believe these things and take them at face value. So there's that little bit of standoffishness, which is important too, you know, for him to manage his own expectations and feel, you know, safe, I guess. But we were starting to get on. I wasn't living at home, and I didn't for quite a while. And I guess when I started to sort of tip into the running, it gave us this kind of new piece to talk about. Was one thing for sure. Like, on, you know, I'd call my dad every night or every second night, whatever it was. And we kind of talk a little bit about running. You know, I'd ask him how his run was. He'd ask me how my run was. And I, for one, was getting pretty excited that I was starting to see things. You know, I can go a little bit further, Dad. I can go a little bit quicker, Dad. And I think those things, you know, looking back now, I guess, you kind of take all those things for granted now, but I remember how excited I was when I'd look down at the watch and I'd see, you know, something under a 5-minute kilometre start to clip through. I'd be like, yeah, we're moving here, you know, we're progressing. But it gave me that thing to kind of bring to him. I guess at the beginning it was like this pride piece I bring to him, and I go, look, Dad, look what I did, you know what I mean? It's like, yeah, son, you're 21, get on with it. And it's kind of like just this rebuilding process, you know, but it definitely brought us closer together. Like, running to this day, my dad still runs every day. Now, he's a bag of bones, he'll tell you the same himself, but he runs every single day, and I do the same. And it is definitely this big piece in our relationship to this day that we have a chat about running, we have a chat about athletics. And looking back, I guess, to go back to your question there, at this point, it probably was a pivotal part of rekindling this kind of relationship between us. It wasn't the only thing, but it was definitely kind of this centerpiece of, you know, okay, we're sharing something here, we're bonding over something again, we're moving in a new direction. Because for me, I guess at this point, the biggest thing I realized, and I guess looking back in general, I truly believe the reason I could never get sober when I tried all those other times, because I had no idea who I was or who I wanted to be or where I wanted to go in life, because I was so filled with shame and insecurity and all these things that were just bogging me down. I spent so long in life just pretending to be someone else, you know, blending into all these places, thinking I needed to fit in, that people needed to like me. So I never actually stopped and asked myself, who is it that you want to be, you know? And I guess with the running, and also this kind of process of me finding out who I am and really just taking that time to say, right, you know, where are we going here? We started to come back closer together. That was a better time, you know, than the times that we had been having for the years before. It was definitely, we were moving in a better direction. Like,
I do want to ask one last thing on this. I was going through your Instagram and stuff. You still do a bit of DJing and stuff like that in clubs. Am I right in saying that? Or
yeah, very much retired. I did last year. I played one gig. I did it sober. I had a great time, but it's not something that I like. I don't put my energy there anymore.
Gotcha.
You know what I mean? Still a massive passion for music. Definitely still something I enjoy, but it's just not my focus. I guess some of that comes from being sober and not knocking around clubs too often.
I was getting at that with that one, yeah.
For sure. Like, I've gone to festivals, I've gone to clubs, no problem. But I guess the other thing is, as a runner, the late nights, man. I'm not able for them like I used to be. It's super unsociable hours, and yeah, it just takes up a lot of time and energy. And I guess there is also that thing of, it's very much the skeleton in the wardrobe. Do I want to go back to that version of my life? Probably not, man. Do you know?
For someone who's doing, as you did last one, you did like 500 kilometers in the month of July, and you're talking about doing doubles and stuff like that. You're not doing that in 4 or 5 hours sleep or being up. Like, your sleep pattern has to be on point. You got to be going to bed roughly the same time each night, up early, get the early morning run in, fuel, and then late runs. When you started to take the running seriously, when did the idea of kind of coach coming in? So I know Gary Hanlon trained you up towards the Barcelona 239. When did that all start to really click for you?
I guess the way the journey went was, I was tipping away at these kind of runs on my own. I broke 20 in the 5K, and then I broke 40 in the 10K, and then I was like, right, where do we go? I've beat my dad, you know. That was kind of
priorities.
That was the battle, and I signed up for a half marathon, and I kind of tipped through that. And then I joined the local athletic club I was living in Waterford for a couple of years. I joined Ferrybank, and I guess that was the first time I started running with lads who knew how to run. Lads who were running track, who were running cross country, who were actually racing and trying to hang off the back of them. And that's when I started to really kind of feel myself move on a little bit away from because I was just going out the door and running, man. I wasn't doing intervals. I was just running. And I started to, join these sessions, race a little bit more. And then I got injured, like we all do. And I couldn't run for 4 months. And I had told everyone, and this was probably the most obnoxious, delusional thing I ever said, but I told everyone I was going to run my home marathon, the Dublin City Marathon. I was going to do it in under 3 hours, and I was never going to do a marathon again. And I got injured. I couldn't run for 4 months. I kept trying to run. I go out the door, crippling pain. I come back in. I couldn't run for longer. I was like, what are we doing here? But when I eventually got back from that and I was building into running, my confidence was on the floor, and there was like 90 days to Dublin Marathon. And I told everyone I was going to break 3 hours. I was like, what am I going to do here? So I got on to Gary. I knew who Gary was. I knew what Gary could do. I got on to him. I was like, look, my confidence is in the bin. I have this really delusional goal. Tell me if it's not going to happen, but let's try. And he said, let's do it. And I just built into that work. I found that at the time, that was probably what opened a new chapter I'm running for me entirely, because I introduced structure. It introduced the goal, and it introduced a pathway to get there. And it really changed how I started to move and operate. That was still probably, it's kind of 90 days. I think it was the block for that Dublin Marathon, which was way too short for me at the time, because I had no base going into it after those kind of 4 months off running. 90 days were pretty lonely. I was still living in Waterford. I was running on my own. All the lads in Ferrybank weren't training for marathons. So it's kind of just going to work, running whatever it was, 12K to 10 miles after work, easy, doing the 2 sessions a week, doing a long run on my own. And they were catastrophic. I was tipping through the long runs, and I'd have to stop. And I was like, how are we going to do this? But the fitness kind of started to spiral a little bit where it needed to be. And I felt a little bit more confident then. I guess coming into the September before Dublin Marathon, I went into the Dublin half marathon in Phoenix Park because I didn't know where I was at, hadn't raced, I'd just been building through this block. I was like, right, we'll throw the dice at this and then we'll know where we're at. And I went, and I think my PB at the time was probably 125, and I went out and ran 119. I was like, okay, we can probably do it. And I suffered. It was a tough day, and I couldn't train the week after it, which was stupid. But I kind of knew then, okay, we've come on quite a lot under Gary already. Maybe this isn't so delusional. We can probably do it. But Gary definitely, and Gary's still training me. To this day, I trust him a lot. I probably wreck his head a little bit more than he likes, but it's just continued. I've no reason to doubt my coach or the work I'm doing. At times you do. That's natural. You're like, oh, where are we going here? What are we doing? But Gary's PB'd me multiple times over every distance since then.
What is the biggest thing from Gary that, so someone listening now is probably, by the time this podcast comes out, anywhere between 8 to 12 weeks away from doing the Dublin Marathon themselves. Before meeting Gary and after, when it comes to marathon training specifically, what is the biggest takeaway you have from the coaching you've got from him so far?
I think one of Gary's big philosophies that he always kind of drives home to me is keeping the powder dry until race day. And I'm tragic at this. I love just kind of getting excited and giving it a bit of steam. But I guess he's slowly and still is teaching me to just kind of keep a rein on that a little bit. Just tone it down. That expression, there's no point going into the long run in the park on a Sunday and expressing your race fitness for no reason around the deer in the Phoenix Park when you could just keep that in the tank and give the extra edge on race day. And these are all things I'm slowly learning. I haven't just formed into this well-rounded runner who masters all the fundamentals. I'm far, far, far from it. But I make those mistakes. But I guess he's kind of taught me to stay consistent and keep that powder dry when you can, where you can. For me, maybe it hasn't always been the case, but I guess consistency. Since I started with Gary, I haven't missed a week. There's an element of luck there for sure. Some of it's I've been lucky enough not to sustain an injury there. I've been lucky enough to be able to get through some of the mileage, some of the builds. But it's also, it's kind of constructed in that way for me that sometimes it kind of toes the line, but he's never broken me,
Yeah. Well, when you're looking at training, obviously like COVID's very recent, new to running, very recent to running phenomenally well. We've gone through, I can't run because of asthma, to doing stuff that me and Sean can only dream of. So my question is then, from being new to runner to now working with someone so experienced and surrounded by a lot of fantastic athletes, which all work with Gary as well. We hear a lot of the fads. We hear a lot of the Instagram coaches that'll be out there and a lot of the tips and tricks, even probably this podcast. But that's why we interview good people like you and ask these questions. When it comes to the various different things, and I want to ask your opinion, heart rate training, effort training, pace training, what way do you, because obviously after coming back from an injury or even getting into it and managing asthma, perceived effort might be different, heart rate might be different. What way do you manage it, and what's your take on how you should train if you're trying to get faster?
Yeah, I guess like there's definitely no one size fits all. Like there's a double threshold. The Norwegian style is the big rage, but like it's massive and it clearly works as well. But like if you're, you know, Brenda from Finglas targeting your first marathon, do you need to be running double threshold? No. Do you know
what is double threshold?
Double threshold revolves around this kind of idea of doing 2 threshold style workouts in the one day. So
one day?
Yeah. So like typically say on a Tuesday you do kind of like and I'm no coach, by the way, this is just my own understanding, but a kind of lower end threshold workout in the morning and then something a little bit sharper in the evening. And the idea is that you can get more quality out of the work in one day than you may be able to do recovery wise on multiple days. Jakob Ingebrigtsen and all those kind of lads are big believers in it, and it clearly works. The results are there. But I guess going back to the question, for me, like there's definitely no one size fits all. I've had heart rate, VO2 tests, I've had lactate tests. Have I implemented them into my training very well? Probably not at all. But a lot of what I do revolves around pace work. And I guess that's the style of my coach as well. But then there are days where it's just effort. Do you know, like I've just got back. I was running for 10 days in France. If I have this set pace that I need to hit for this workout on these intervals, but it's 32 degrees outside, then effort comes into play. It's like, okay, we can work hard here, but am I gonna go way over the red line on a Tuesday evening just to hit the pace? No, because that kind of perceived level of exertion is through the roof, and you know, for what, your 6x K session on a random Tuesday. So it's a balance of both for me. You normally kind of use these pace targets. I will try and hit them all the time, and a lot of the time what I try and do is Gary didn't hear this, but I'll go and hit the pace for the first couple of reps and I'll try and tip them on then a little bit for the last couple of reps, just quite steadily go progressive through the sessions. If I can, I can. If I can't, I can't. That's okay. And then on the harder days, there's some days where, you know, I haven't got enough recovery. I've been working a long day. I feel a little bit more tired and fatigued. Then I can go by effort. Do you know what I mean? Am I working hard for a contained effort? Is the heart rate going up a little bit? Am I recovering in the rest? Yes, good session. Do you know? And it doesn't always have to be this kind of metronomical 8x K, progressive by 1 second every rep. Those sessions are nice. They feel good. Sometimes they feel clean. But it's fine if you just go out and get a session done and you worked hard and you're running easy the next day. Do you know what I mean? So I think the biggest thing is like there's no method of training out there that can tell you what you know about your body. Are you tired? Are you going to work too hard? Are you going to bury yourself just to hit the pace? And you need to consider those things. I'm not the best at doing it. There's times I have buried myself for the sake of hitting a session, probably more often than I'd like to admit, but you know, that's okay too. Sometimes I guess, you know, it's nice to work a little bit hard and feel like you're working, but it's definitely an ongoing project. But I guess for me, it's a balance of pace targets and then managing by effort.
I touched on it earlier, 500 kilometers last month, double sessions. Talk to me about these double sessions, trying to get one in early and then fueling in particular to go back out again. Because there's some mornings I get one in, I'm like, I'm not too sure about walking in the evening, let alone go for a run. But that's just the way my body is right now at the distance I'm at. Like, how do you handle these double sessions?
Yeah, like I'll be honest with you, doubles are something that have kind of creeped in recently enough for me. The reason being, when the mileage climbs to that point of, you know, I have to come home from work and run 19 kilometers easy to hit the mileage target. It's too much running in the evening. Do you know what I mean? And there is a time and a place for that. You can have your nice medium long run in the middle of the week. Again, I'm no coach, but this is, you know, it's a reality. Like you've got up, you've gone to work, you've done a full day's work, you've been able to fuel whatever you have on your lunch and work, but then you're coming home and before you even have your dinner, you're running 19K easy. It's a long time. And I'm an evening runner. So splitting those two things up to 9K in the morning and 10K in the evening, one, drags me out of the bed, two, breaks up the volume a little bit, and you're recovering a little bit better from those shorter volumes than you would be from a full 19K, even if it's easy,
Gotcha.
you know. So if I'm running a session on a Thursday, but I've ran 20 kilometers after work on a Wednesday, you best believe, even if it's easy, there's fatigue in the legs, you know what I mean? But if I've broken that up into 10K in the morning on the Wednesday, 10K in the evening, there's a little bit less fatigue there because it's managed better. And that, you know, that's just my own belief. That's the way it's been working for me. I have noticed since those doubles have creeped in that I feel a lot better a lot of the time. It's not miraculous, but I definitely do feel a lot cleaner coming through the work. And it's allowed me to get into mileage that I wanted to be kind of operating in and around, in a way that means I'm not just breaking myself up. Particularly, I guess, going back to Barcelona, I didn't run many doubles for Barcelona. Spring marathon blocks, coming home in the pitch black after work and going out and running 18K kind of haunts me a little bit still. And I was like, right, we're going to change that one up. But even, I kind of find as well, for me, I have this kind of style at the moment, like even my Saturday's pretty low volume. Do you know what I mean? I'm pretty much doing nothing plus a couple of strides to just then. It's almost like I'm tapering off for the long run on a Sunday, coming into it a little bit cleaner. And the doubles are the only thing that's allowing me to do that, you know? So they're working fueling wise. I'm a rookie. I recently started working with a nutritionist, Brianna McGee. She's deadly, very good at what she does. I went down that route because I was having a couple of stomach issues that I needed resolved. I needed help. And since I've done that, and, you know, we haven't changed the wheel. We haven't, you know, scientifically mastered anything monumental, but a little bit of help with some fundamentals that look simple on paper when she's put them down for me, but I didn't find so simple beforehand, has been massive. For me, fueling, I was listening to Mick Fox on the podcast there recently, that thing of running fasted in the morning or not running fasted. An ongoing balance finding project, I guess. And that goes back to exactly what he said. There's nothing that works for everyone. You know, there's some days I run fasted simply because I can't get something down that early in the morning. There's other days I manage to get something down, let it settle a bit and then get out the door. But I am finding a much better balance with fueling these days.
When you look at fueling and doing it right, and obviously you've put in the time, the effort, you've got the expertise, does it excite you in terms of the possibilities of where can we go from here? Like you've mentioned, Mick, it was when he started putting the 1% together, it was a case of how far can I go? How quick can I go? You know, what's my limit here? Only what's up here? You know, it's that because he was finding all these 1% and doing and trial and error over many times. You're very new to this. Is there excitement in terms of you're surrounding yourself with the right people, and particularly now with nutrition, which is probably underestimated when it comes to long distance and endurance running? Do you feel like now there could be a chance for you to push on again?
Yeah, I think that's always going to be the goal. My desire is to keep going 100%. I'd like to continue to knuckle through those times and get them down. I guess it gets a little bit more difficult to believe that you will. I think I will. I'm going to work as if I'm going to, but I guess it doesn't come guaranteed, and that's just the thing in running. You know, you can work pretty hard, you can do well in training, and sometimes you have to roll the dice and see what happens. But I guess my plan is to continue to work to get those times down. I'm very excited by that. Sometimes I'm scared of it. Do you know what I mean? It depends when you ask me. Am I going into the Dublin Marathon this year? I guess actually there's a funny thing happening here. So Valencia was my A target for the year. Valencia, obviously a very fast marathon in December. If you're looking to PB, the thing on paper to do is go to Valencia, target Valencia, and, you know, get dragged along by the group. That all made sense in my head. And then I guess this kind of love for Dublin got in the way of that.
It always does.
And I'm okay with that. You know, a lot of people, I've said it to a couple of people, like, what are you doing? You know, go to Valencia. In my head, the idea of a PB in my hometown is worth far more to me than a PB on a flat, rapid, well-known fast course in Valencia. And that, like, look, don't get me wrong, there's a time and a place for those things too. I'll never, ever put someone down or knock someone for going to a fast marathon and taking that benefit. That's why I'm going to Antrim next month. Do you know what I mean? Like, we do these things. But I guess when I ran the Dublin Marathon last year, I've no shame in admitting I cried the last mile home. You know, it was potentially one of the most special days of my whole life. And that's, you know, that's a balance of where I was at the time. But it's just home, you know, and this idea of PBing at home to me is magic. So the plan is to have a go at a PB in Dublin. do I want to put a number on that? I kind of put some numbers on it, and then I took them back, and I said, we'll just work and see where we go. But yeah, you know, the plan is to just push that boat. It's exciting, it's scary. I guess that's running, and that's regardless of where you're at. You know what I mean? You see people trying to break 4 hours. You see people trying to finish their first marathon, trying to break 3 hours. All of these things are new targets. You're venturing into that unknown, whether it's, you know, you're pushing into the 2:30s, or you're getting under the 4 hours, or you're just trying to get to the finish line. To set out and do something that you've never done before is the same process, regardless of what the time is, regardless of where you're going with it. And I think that's the excitement. That's what we all chase when we sign up for these marathons, you know?
Well, that last mile is always a special mile in Dublin. Of the times, 3 times I've done it, Sean's done it more times than me now, but every time has been, didn't matter what the occasion or what the time, that last mile was as special as the first. For you, what was that feeling like, and what did it mean to you in Dublin last year?
I think, like, for me, again, going back to this kind of like obnoxious, and it's a reflection of where I was at in my life at the time as well. When I had said this the previous year, I was going to break 3 hours in my first marathon at home. Had all these kind of notions, was still figuring out who I was. Do you know what I mean? I was just throwing these things out into the world. But I felt like I was going to do that when I told the line. I'd settled down a little bit. It was less about this kind of egotistical piece and more about this goal that I want to do. The big thing for me, and I didn't touch on this, but, you know, in the midst of all that darkness in those years of addiction, I tried to take my own life, and I availed of the PA to House services. And there's no question about the 12 weeks that I spent working with PA to House taught me, you know, that tough times come and go, and you can manage to get through that without looking, you know, to that level of darkness. And last year I ran the Dublin Marathon for PA to House. And I think along the way, this whole journey of addiction and nearly losing it all, and everything just started to fall into this kind of chronological order in my mind of, I think it's pretty easy to forget those things when you're just trying to get through the days, trying to move on, trying to train, whatever's going on in life. But for like this brief moment in time, I stood on top of this mountain, and I said the same thing about Barcelona. And I looked back at where I had come from at the time. And I guess for the first time, I was proud of myself, and I was okay with saying that I'd come from this place and I'd conquered this thing. And that meant a lot to me. But one of the things that really caught me in the last mile, I knew my dad was, you know, at about 40 kilometers, and that was kind of holding me together a little bit as well. It was the first time my dad had been out to a race. I had come home to do the Dublin Marathon, and I remember I just locked eyes with him as he kind of swing off at the canal there to come onto the home kind of straight on that new finish. And he was right on, and he just screamed at me from the sideline. I locked eyes with him, and I just broke down, man, the last 500 meters home. It was this whole journey of me and my dad lost our relationship, and we're back together now, and it's magic, and he's proud of me and I'm proud of myself. And then we hugged after the marathon. There's a photo of us hugging, and it's just pure magic. Like, it was just this full circle moment for me, I guess. And I say this to a lot of people that I talk about the Dublin Marathon to. There's like 200 meters around that course where there's not people. You know, it's just noise. But particularly, you swing off onto Northumberland Road, and it's just, I couldn't even hear myself think. There was all these people. And it just felt like this moment. It's like they've closed the streets of your hometown so you can do a victory lap, and everyone came out to cheer you on. It was just magic, like, you know. And that excites me more than, like, Barcelona was great, don't get me wrong. There was great support there. But does it feel the same as, you know, the streets of your hometown, the streets I spent some of the hardest years of my life on? No, it's not. And that's just for me, you know. That's the way it's always going to be. So we'll go again with Dublin. And, you know, to anyone that hasn't done the Dublin Marathon, I reckon it's the best day of the year every year, you know. So give it an all go.
There is something special about crossing that Dublin. That, like, I got me PB this year in Barcelona, and it was fantastic, and I was roaring more so for where the hell the finish line was for Barcelona as opposed to Dublin. Like, where the hell is it? And then just that kind of relief. But like Dublin, a little bit this past year, because he said that new route and stuff, and I was nowhere near my best, but even still, that last bit there still gets me, and I'm like, Jesus, you know, a good 25, 30 minutes, 22 minutes I was off my PB getting that Dublin last year, and I still got that, like, bit heavy. But I have podcasts talk about running, but there's some things I don't want to talk about when you cross that finish line. That's the way I was, I'm honest with you. But I want to put your times into context and where you're going, because this year, you did a 250 or so, wasn't it, last year in Dublin?
Yeah, it was 250 high, 250 flat.
Yeah.
Thereabouts. Yeah.
Since then, we talked with 239. That's like 5 months later, Barcelona, knocking 11 minutes off. You hit your 5k PB, 16:02, a 10k PB, 34:29, the Dublin City Half Marathon, 75:41. Like, you've hit in all those distance PBs in the last 6-7 months, like throughout the rest of 2025. It's like, where do I go from here? Because not like you just hit like new PBs the first time. They are very, very high levels. We're talking now seconds to get PBs on top of that. Like someone like myself or Eric, when we get a marathon PB, it's like, okay, there's minutes that could be added on there, like easy ways to find them. For you, you're dealing with a couple of seconds here or there. Like that's tough. And I saw you talk about on Instagram, you mentioned your stomach issues, the smart to wear it all, just go, you know what? Pulling back from the race series and putting all that in on Dublin and taking it as it comes, as opposed to, not to borrow the term from earlier, and the mistakes I make would be to just go for that high of that next race and keep racing myself. And I suppose the complete opposite of what Gary would tell you, to keep pushing there. Is that hard for you not to go, you know what, I'm feeling good, let's try and get a PB this next race, or where am I at for this next 5k?
Big time. It's very difficult. And the lads will laugh at this now. I get an awful amount of stick in the group chat for having a bib for every race in the country and racing too much and all this kind of stuff. But racing excites me. There's a time and a place for it, I guess. One of the things was coming out of Barcelona, it's like you've got a summer before you need to get into block. Is it a big deal if you just go racing the whole time? Probably not, you know what I mean? But you do have to pull it back at some point. The last 6 weeks, I guess, I raced the Waterford half. I went for a PB. It didn't happen. I had a big stomach issue. And I ran 119. And I'd ran 115 3 times in a row. And that knocked the head off me. Do you know, I was like, we're after going backwards 5 minutes here. What's going on? And I needed to settle down and just realize there was things coming into the mix that were complicating it. It was a bad day at the office. We're okay. But off the back of that, I addressed some stomach issues. I got some medical help, fixed some things nutritionally, pain-free the last while, thank God. But also pulling out of all those races in the meantime just allowed me to start to spiral this marathon consistency. And I guess whether this is true or not, again, I'm no coach, but like you often hear that thing of it revolves around 2 good sessions, maybe 1 good session, depending where you're at, a decent long run, and as much easy volume as you can handle. And that's like that, you know, it's thrown around a lot. Whether it's true or not is you know, give it or take it. But not racing allows you to have that consistency of keeping the mileage progressing to where, you know, it works for you. What can you adapt to? What can you take? And I've got great consistency over the last 6 weeks in terms of the marathon is my A target. Ultimately, all these goals are brilliant. Trying to tip down the 5K, get a bit of speed in, trying to push on that half marathon. But what do we want to do here for the year? We want to go back to the marathon and try and get a little bit quicker. What's that going to take? It's going to take some consistency. So I guess over the last couple of weeks, I have actually raced twice. I didn't say anything about them. One of them I didn't race. It was we used the 10 mile in the Phoenix Park as a tempo in the middle of our long run. It went really well. And that gave me another confidence boost, like being able to go into something like that off no taper and hit a solid tempo and work with that. And then again, race the 10K there in Park West. And to be able to go into that off no taper again and come third and near a PB, but not target a PB, just go in and put down a hard effort. And I won't lie, I did kind of feel I could go in there and go a little bit quicker than I had gone in my PB. It didn't work out that way, but I was able to get up the next day again and go into training, and that kind of shifting those cogs of, okay, you didn't PB, but the mileage is high, you're targeting a marathon, you were able to do that and get back to training the next day. You start to realize, okay, maybe I am in a good spot here. It's not all about just tapering off and PBing. So finding a balance of those things, I guess there is also a lot of people tell you you can race yourself to fitness. I've seen people do it. Is it an accepted method across the board? Probably not, but it works for a lot of people. And I guess it comes back to this thing in running. And one of my good friends who I train with a lot said there's a massive element of luck. Do you know what I mean? Yes. Some people will race all the time and get away with it and end up in incredible shape. Other people will race all the time, race themselves into the ground, and then can't put together the pieces in training again, you know. And some of that is scientific and load management and all this kind of stuff, but some of it, there's just that element of luck. If it works for you, it works for you. If it doesn't, hard luck, man, But I think recently, for me, I just seem to be in the last couple of weeks, and touch wood, these things can change very, very quickly, but we're just finding this nice, smooth level of consistency. No doubt that will change. A marathon block is a long time. Things go up, they come down, they go wrong. I've learned that in my marathon blocks over the last, since Dublin last year. It's not going to be perfect. I hear you lads say it on the podcast all the time. There's no such thing as a perfect marathon block. But we feel pretty good. We feel like we're flowing through things nicely. And I guess you got to step back and be grateful for that while you have it, because God knows what waits next week.
Yeah.
Will, I have two questions kind of to bring us towards the end of the one is advice for people who would be listening to this, taking on their 10th marathon, 100th marathon, first marathon, coming into Dublin. We've touched on it there with the training block and consistency, but your kind of tips for getting the most out of the day and enjoying it and all that means. And the second question I have for you is, how do we combat the void post-marathon? When we take the medal off 5 days later, how do we combat that void that a marathon leaves?
I think advice, will start with advice. This one's a rogue one, and I think, I'd never put someone down for wearing headphones in a marathon, particularly if you think you're going to be out there for a lot longer than some other people. Like, of course, music's going to be pretty enjoyable at some point to get you through it, but in my opinion, I guess it's pretty subjective. The Dublin Marathon is magic with no headphones on. There's just
100% agreed.
It's just like, I think if you haven't experienced that, particularly if it's a second marathon or a third or fourth and you've worn headphones before, give it a go. If you're really skeptical about it, put the headphones in the belt or something, and throw them on if you really need them. But there's just something magic about, maybe I'm just too strung out on running, but something magic about, shoes hitting the ground and people shouting around the streets that kind of gets me going a little bit. Other than that, trust the work. So many people, myself included, we all panic in a marathon block. In Barcelona, I got the flu for a couple of days. Sending texts like the clappers, it's all over. Do you know what I mean? I'm after getting the flu. And we're like 6 weeks away from the race here. I think I missed 3 days in the end, but I was like, we'll just throw the towel in. We'll get into ping pong or something, Just leave it settled. Do you know what I mean? Things go wrong. Pains come in. Try and understand the difference between I'm a little bit tight and I need to just turn it down a notch, or I'm actually injured and I just need to take 48 hours to see what's going on before we plan ahead. Trust in the work you're doing. Try not get too stressed about it. Marathons are stressful. You're going to worry about them. They do keep you up at night the odd time, let's be honest about it. But don't miss the magic of the work you're doing because you're so stressed about this time or the day itself. And I guess this just comes back to, a love for running. But for me, there's a lot of magic in the work, and I put this post out before Barcelona that, in the run up to the Barcelona Marathon, I spent more time with people. I made new friends. I looked around more when I was running. I soaked in more of what I was doing. And I found myself at the end of that block being way happier than I was going into it. And, regardless of whether I went under the goal at 2:40 or not, you can't take that away from me. That's worth more to me than that finish time was. And I really meant that. No doubt I would have been upset if I didn't go under the goal. That's natural too. But I still walked away with this peace, this time of my life that I really, really enjoyed. And I think don't wish that away, because that's a big part of your marathon journey as well. It's not just the day. We all say it, the day itself is a victory lap, whether that's hard to believe or not. I know marathon sounds like torture to some people, but it is. It's this celebration of fitness, of endurance, of perseverance through a block of training. But there's this journey of time where, you can learn a lot about yourself. You can meet new people. You can see new things that I think we should all spend a bit more time focused on. What was the second question, Eric?
The void then afterwards. So when we cross that finish line, we're blubbering, we're crying, we're hugging, we're kissing, and then it's a week later, and what do we do? How do we get over this void?
Post-marathon blues is a real thing. I think before I did my first half marathon, actually, off the back of it, I was like, I really struggled with that. I was like, where do we go? I've had this goal in the distance, this carrot to chase for quite a while now. It's gone. I haven't entered any other races. My whole world is falling apart. But then I guess that did affect me for a little bit of time, but I'm lucky enough that I haven't experienced it since. And I guess that just comes back to this idea. I know a lot of people targeting the marathon won't be year-round runners as well. You know, that like they're people who may be doing just the one marathon as an experience, and then off the back of that, they need something to fill that time. I guess I'm lucky enough that one of my big focuses after the marathon is will these muscle pains go away so I can just get back out and do a bit of work on the road. But for other people, I would say, you know, marathons demand a lot of time and attention. And I heard you guys say this the other day as well when I was listening with Mick. They take away whether you like it or not, and we can try and balance that. We can strike that happy medium, but they take away time from the people you love, from other commitments you have. I guess post-marathon blues use that downtime to give back to some of the things you took away from to find that time to go running. Am I good at that one? Sometimes, you know, but give it a go.
Me for it.
The other thing is there's great races in this year in this country all year round, you know. Take some time, enjoy the win, and potentially sign up for another carrot in the distance and see if you can go again. That will be for some people, not for everyone. It's definitely probably the way I like to do it. And I kind of find myself in this thing at the moment, whether it's a mentality thing or not, is I'm a better trainer than a racer. I fucking love going out and training. You know, I love being out there running. It lights me up. It's the work that kind of makes me feel like I have a purpose. So I don't mind that. And then race day, I get a little bit more up in my head about it. I'm like, how do I become a good racer versus a good trainer? And some people are the opposite. They love the race day, but they hate the work. And I guess we're all different. But I to come back to make a long story short, I guess find something to fill that space. If it's running, brilliant. If it's your loved ones, even better. If it's something different, don't be afraid to pivot and go after some other experience in life. There's a million and one things we can do. But I guess the worst thing you could probably do is just sit in this kind of void of, oh, it's done, you know, it's gone, and that happened, and now what do I do with myself? Just go and do something, you know.
Well, to wrap up this episode, at what point during this journey did you get enough abuse to drop the bang average runner?
Oh, lads. I got so much stick for that, so much stick, and I still kind of lean into it. I'm like, it's kind of like this funny thing, but I guess it's not. It drove it home for me one day when someone was like, well, if I'm a 22-minute 5K runner and I really feel massively proud of that, and you're running 16 minutes and you're saying you're bang average, how do you think that makes me feel? And I was like, okay, we'll park that off. It was just a joke, but we'll park that one off. But I guess I'll be honest, like when you look at, like I'm always looking, and this is another thing in running, like you're always looking at someone down the road, unless you're Kipchoge, like, you know, there's always someone quicker than you. There's always someone more efficient and better than you at running. And I'm looking at lads that I train with who are a little bit down the road, and I'm chasing them, and I'm like, how am I going to do that? That I'm bang average compared to you. I'm looking at some of the best sub-elites in the country going, you are way down the road from where I am. On bang average. And that's kind of where that came from. It wasn't saying, I guess, against the general, you know, people running the Dublin Marathon that I'm bang in the middle and you're way down there. Do you know what I mean? I didn't mean it to, but I got a lot of abuse, so we had to sack it off.
Well, you are definitely not bang average, that's for certain, and it's been a hell of a journey for you, and one that's only just beginning, and we hope that you have every success as it comes into Dublin. We'll be seeing how you go, and hopefully you get the success that you're hoping for in this one, in your hometown marathon, as you so desperately want to have that, and hopefully it does bring that feeling of joy again in that last mile. Will, it's been absolutely amazing getting to know your story and getting to know you, and thanks for sharing everything. We've no doubt that you've given a lot to a lot of people listening along, and there's a few 100k plus runners who are taking a hard look at themselves now. But it's been an absolutely fantastic episode, and thanks so much for giving us your time.
Lads, thanks so much. It's been a pleasure.
And that is it for this week's episode of the Any Given Runday podcast with myself, Will, and Eric. Take care.